What's up, everybody? It's Anthony Rose, the Community Finance Coach, aka Mr. Remedy, and you are watching another show on the Roundtable Remedies. And I'm super excited today. We're talking about the power of forgiveness. And in speaker rotation, I would love to start off as we always do in speaker rotation, kicking us off for tonight. Josh, if you would like to just introduce yourself and tell us where you're calling from.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Anthony. It's good to be here. Appreciate the invite. Well, yeah, my name's Josh. I work in the payroll and HR field. I'm with the company Paychecks, and most of what I do is getting companies in a position where they're compliant from like a payroll tax standpoint, as well as like an HR regulation standpoint, OSHA, what have you. We cover a lot of different areas holistically for businesses. And I'm actually calling from New Jersey, right here in in Montville. So yeah.
Jersey in the house. Thank you so much, Josh, for jumping on and sharing us a little bit about what you do professionally. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say in our conversation. Next in our speaker rotation, Joseph. What's up, Joseph?
Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Fowler. I am a mortgage loan advisor with Paramount Residential Mortgage Group. And I am also from New Jersey, from the great county of Union County. Yeah, that's me. Sorry.
New
First,
Jersey in the
first time on the
building.
show. So,
Yeah, first timer. Well, it's the first time for all of you guys on the round table, and anchoring us in tonight, my boy Nico. Nico.
Anthony, what's going on? Thank you for having me on the call tonight. I am actually residing in Richmond, Virginia, originally from New York. I do miss it at times, but I am a comfort advisor for an HVAC company down here called Air Force One. And I basically sell equipment to homeowners and do installations and do work very well with that, and love the field that I'm in. And that's basically what I do.
Awesome. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, speakers, for joining us. And so, Roundtable Remedies was created to inspire, connect, and educate individuals from real people, real stories. And I hope that for those that are watching, today is a very challenging conversation, especially for men. So, if you're a man watching, the power of forgiveness is definitely something that I struggle with. And so, I hope that for those that are watching, unpack, process, challenge yourself with these questions, and let's just jump right in. So, Josh, when you think of the power of forgiveness, what comes to mind?
Ultimately, what comes to mind first is almost like forgiving yourself in a way, because it's kind of like what they say about putting on your own oxygen mask before you put on someone else's. Like, you're not really in a position to be making good choices for other people if you're not, if there's certain things that you don't like about yourself. So, and then what you don't like about yourself, you tend to project onto others. So I'd say being like self-critical of your own flaws, but then forgiving yourself to allow yourself to improve and just kind of maybe incorporate some of those negative aspects into your personality. So, kind of acknowledge that they're there and integrate them into your personality. Kind of downstream from when you don't, I guess, actively forgive yourself. One of them could be social anxiety, which is something I've definitely struggled with to a larger degree in the past. And I'll say that the neuron response, or the fight or flight, that never goes away, but it's just how you kind of manage it. So when you are sort of not being truthful to yourself, you're kind of putting up maybe an image that is not really true to your real nature, and it's kind of hard to maintain. You will kind of get anxiety when you're not exactly living up to that high standard you set yourself to. Another big point for me, and this was actually inspired by an author I greatly admire. His name is Jordan Peterson. Wrote a book called 12 Rules for Life. It's kind of just like a holistic advice in a lot of different areas, whether it comes to like family, social anxiety, business, networking. It's just a really good book. But one of the points that really stood out to me was particularly for people who struggle with social anxiety or maybe public speaking and get stage fright and stuff like that. The most important thing is just way you put it is just like use your eyes, like pay attention. So when people kind of succumb to anxiety, they sort of withdraw from their surroundings, maybe even their posture will reflect that. It's like, oh, don't look at me. Like I don't want to call attention to myself.
Yeah.
In the effort to just, well, number one, fix your posture and then just literally just look at what's happening in the room instead of avoiding it. You'll find that a lot of the thoughts you have and perceived judgments other people are making about you aren't really true. And they're kind of all in your head. So, yeah.
I think that you brought on a good point here for those that may agree or can relate with you struggling with social anxiety. For those that are watching right now, do you struggle with social anxiety? Whether you're put on a spot in a group of people and you have to say something, or if you're on a podcast for the first time, or if you're in a speaking engagement and speaking in front of an audience. Josh, was there ever a time where you felt that anxiety and you were hard on yourself because you didn't take the chance to say something when you should have? How did you handle that? And how did you
Yep.
forgive yourself after?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's just kind of par for the course when you're kind of avoiding situations where you put yourself out there. Opportunities are going to come your way and you're not going to take advantage. And I could probably think of a lot of times that that's happened, whether it's just like, a girl that I could have had a shot with and I should have just made the move and asked her out, or like a business opportunity, what have you. And the best thing to do is just learn from it and move on and just, say, I know better for next time.
Right. Hey, Nico, I see you nodding your head. What are you thinking? What are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I could definitely relate social anxiety, kind of being frozen in a moment. I would say that sometimes, in life we take risk. And in that risk, a lot of anxiety could come out of that. Social anxiety with different situations. What I would say is I'm thinking more on the risk side of the things. It's just kind of allowing that grip of fear, releasing that fear, because that's where the anxiety comes from. It's the fear, the lies and the things that rises up inside. For me personally, I look at it more of in a faith aspect of things. It's kind of tough, and forgiveness. Forgiveness is the best thing you can do. I would say for me in faith, Jesus says, forgive others as you would forgive yourself. And so when I do that, I remember that the biggest thing for me was to forgive my dad, right, when I was growing up. So when I forgave him, it showed him, the love of God that I had inside of me. I don't know if I'm getting off the topic here,
No,
Anthony.
no, it's okay. We're talking about forgiveness, and you're just kind of continuing the thought around social anxiety, and I think as young men and men in general, a lot of us don't have good relationships with our fathers, and I could definitely relate with that, and so that gives us some social anxiety on how to be a man in public, how to be a man with our spouse, how to be a man in business, because quite frankly, we don't really see men model and frame it for us. So kudos to you for being able to kind of stand on that and being faith-based, and forgiving your father and kind of showing him that, how big your heart is and he too can forgive himself. So super powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it was the best decision I've done in my life, and also to lead me on to other opportunities to learn how to teach forgiveness, to learn how to live in forgiveness and kind of carry that out and not have that weight on your shoulders. Because, you know, when you carry unforgiveness, or you can't forgive yourself, you kind of carry a weight on your shoulders that you carry, you know, you kind of carry like you're carrying luggage around.
It's kind of like guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Joseph, I see you in deep thought right now. What is going through your mind when we're just kind of
Yeah,
discussing this guilt
yeah,
and social anxiety?
Josh and Nico kind of took a lot of the stuff I was gonna say, to be very honest with you. Like Nico just mentioned, like having that monkey on your back with like kind of like having social anxiety. Um, I was somewhat of a shy. I wouldn't say I was a shy kid, but I was always the kid in the, you know, when you got to pick chairs to sit, I was always the one that sat in the back of the class, right? Um, I unfortunately grew up with dyslexia, but it was never diagnosed until I was an adult. Kind of self-diagnosed myself.
Mm-hmm.
So not being able to, I didn't want to get picked on because I didn't want to be that one that had to read in front of the class. So I
Hmm.
would duck down, and I was always a big kid, but I tried to like disguise myself and hide myself within the class so I wouldn't be picked on. Um, kind of, I guess, maybe gave me a little bit of social anxiety from time to time. But a lot of the stuff I was going to say, Nico and Josh here actually mentioned, and it kind of, you know, it makes you not feel comfortable with yourself, like you were saying before. And I'm glad I got over it. Now, being in this business, closed mouths get fed, don't get fed, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not, I remember one of the first self improvement books I read. They said when you go to a meeting, you should park your car in that first spot in the front of the hotel. If you go to a meetup, you park your car in the first spot. Not that you're trying to show off your vehicle or anything like that, but it's the same about, everyone says, the most important people in a room sit in that first row. But it was another piece when the guy said you park your car in the front row of every meeting, and you're always the last one to leave. And it's kind of a trick of trying to being able to talk to people as they're leaving.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I like that. The
Yeah.
last one to leave.
So
You
yeah,
know.
yeah, last one to leave. Right. Exactly.
So it's really interesting that we're having this conversation, and some of the things that are coming out is social anxiety, forgiving our fathers, um, being a little neurodiverse and sitting in the back so we don't kind of get called on. And these are things that we may tend not to forgive ourselves for, right? Some of us are brave enough and courage enough to kind of share this, right? Because as men, being vulnerable it doesn't go hand in hand. And what I'm hearing from you three is that not only are you being vulnerable, not only did you identify a personal problem, but it seems to me that you guys are still fighting through it and have successfully got past that.
Always a fight.
Josh,
Always a fight.
I wanted to bring it back to you before we go to Joseph, but how do you hold yourself accountable in those moments now where you know right from wrong, you know better? So in those moments where you catch yourself, are you a little bit nicer to yourself? You're not as hard on yourself if you don't take the chance because maybe your butterflies did get in the way. What is your thought process now?
Well, I'd say for me, it's just like whenever you're kind of feeling that fight or flight come on, just take that moment to just like almost like detach from those thoughts and just like observe what's going on around you. And you kind of ground yourself and you're in the best position to just make like a rational decision. They say it's like fears like the unknown, but you make it known by, as I said, just taking in all of your surroundings, not being afraid to take up space. And those anxieties just kind of fade away. But it's something you got to maintain actively.
Right. And I appreciate that. Don't go no anywhere. Towards the end of the show, we'll have a final thought segment. But I thank you so much for starting our conversation, Josh. And going to our next speaker, Joseph. Joseph, when you think of the power of forgiveness, what comes to mind?
You want me to speak like a personal story?
Yeah, I mean, if we like to keep it real and raw on the round table.
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in New York City, and I'm a child of the '80s, and that was a really rough time in New York City. And unfortunately, my dad, who you could basically call like later on in his life like a child of God, like the nicest person you ever meet in your life. But during those rough times in New York City, he got caught up, doing hard narcotics. You'd never think that this man, one of the nicest people that will literally, the saying that he'll give you the shirt off his back, like literally he'll give you the pants, his shirt, his socks, whatever he needed to do to help other people. And he got caught up in the drug game. He caught. There were times when I get to come home from school. I remember once I came home from school and I heard him yelling, and he was hiding his drugs inside of the the soap dish. Back the old school ones, the ones that were cemented to the wall. He had pulled it out. He would hide drugs in there,
Little stash
and
spot.
that was his stash spot. Yeah, and he got his arms stuck in there. He couldn't
I'm a
get it out.
Jamaica Queens baby. I got a really
Okay, so you
unique. I
understand.
can
You
identify it.
understand.
Been there, done that,
You know.
Joseph.
Okay, so we didn't. I'm from Far Rockaway. I'm not sure if we talked about that.
Okay, no. So
So
I
we're
can
right
get it.
down
I
the
get
road
it.
from each
I'm an
other.
80s
We're right
baby.
down the block from each other. Yeah, absolutely. Him stealing my jewelry, um, having to go, looking for him in the stash spots in the buildings, having my friends, and I'm what, 12, 13, 14 years old, and having my friends say, "Hey, your dad's up in the crack spot," and having to go chase after him with my mom, and to the point where we got him into recovery, and
Oh,
it really changed his life. But that was a lot for me to forgive. I think that's where I learned to forgive from that.
wow.
Because other people would have just probably disowned his dad, and never spoken to him. Even when my mom was talking about, getting divorced, and I begged her not to. Um, I think that's where I learned a lot about forgiveness until the day that he passed away. I think,
I
we forgive,
definitely,
but we don't forget. You know what I
of
mean?
course.
And I think he always knew that in the back of his head, because he wouldn't have $1 in his pocket. He'd be like, "What do you need? I'll pay for it." Because I think
Mm,
he also had to, forgive himself. And to the day he passed away, he'd always think about me first and others. And I think that was his part of forgiveness as well.
I can relate. My father struggled with drugs and alcohol, and he died of hepatitis C around my 13th birthday, and he was buried in Puerto Rico. And I kind of didn't react when I found out about his passing. In fact, I was more filled with anger. And then after I grew up, and I kind of accepted Jesus into my life, and kind of my testimony, kind of turning a lot of my struggles into a testimony, something that I could remind myself to stay humble. And I say this, Joseph, because in the beginning I couldn't forgive him, and I felt like I always had a chip on my shoulder. And later on in life, Bruce Lee, there was a quote that said, "If you come into a fight with a chip on your shoulder, you're coming in with extra weight."
Mhm.
And I had to think about that. And I said to myself, I think it's time for me to forgive. So, Joseph, I wanted to ask you a question. As a lot of us are kind of sharing about our open relationship with our fathers here, as men talking about the power of forgiveness, it's very empowering to have this conversation, because a lot of us have broken or absent homes. Let's just be real, especially in the inner city. So Joseph, before you forgave your dad, did you have that kind of resentment or anger like that I shared with my father? How what was your emotional feeling like coming up to that point of forgiveness?
I was just trying to help him. From what I can remember, I think the most the upsetting part is when he sold my four-finger ring, my four-finger gold ring that I had that I had
Oh,
bought on my own. He probably bought it for me.
you had the yellow boombox and everything? Oh yeah, I
No, I
see.
didn't have a boombox. I had a couple of chains, and I had a four-finger ring with my name across the front. I think that was the hardest part, to be honest with you.
You
Um,
remember now, you can recall it like, oh, Dad, why'd you do that? That was my favorite.
that was my favorite ring. But I'm sorry. What was the question again? I'm sorry, I got caught
Nah,
up.
just you kind of answered it. Just talking about how did you feel when we were talking about forgiving your pops, and you kind of just said you was trying to help him. So for me, I
Yeah,
was just
absolutely.
kind of sharing that I had a little bit of resentment and that guilt and that anger towards him, just kind of what he was doing and how it all went down. So I didn't really feel it when he died. I didn't. It didn't really hit me until afterwards, maybe over a decade later, that I'm just kind of in deep prayer. And that's when I was like, you know what, let me pray for this guy, my dad. And that's when a relationship started to happen after his passing, once I forgave him.
Yeah. Um, I think because I was an only child, I really can't say I came from a broken home. Besides, with that major part of my life, I don't remember how long he was caught up like that, but it was a couple of years. But coming from an only, being an only child, and just really having my mom, my dad, my grandmother, um, I knew that's all. I guess that's that's all I had, and I didn't want to lose it.
Hmm.
So that's why I think I forgave him right off the bat. I don't really remember being resentful against my dad until he stole until he sold my ring.
Of course, of course. No, that's good. And perception is reality. And as we're sharing here on the round table, everybody can relate and identify with with stories. So it's beautiful that although that you were going through some of these things, you never really had any anger or resentment towards him. Nico, I see you nodding your head. What are some of your thoughts? Because I know you talked about forgiving your dad as well.
Yeah, my parents went through a divorce when I was about 10, and it kind of broke me. I just, seeing my dad go his own way and my mom go her own way. It was actually me and my little brother, and seeing my mom struggle for a long time. That always got me, and I think that divorce, actually, I'm in recovery since 2015, about 9 years in recovery, and
Awesome. Congratulations.
thank you. Turned my life around from addiction and just the life controlling issues, and I went through a program called Teen Challenge, actually, in New York, um, and that's when I found freedom. And as I went through that program, that's when I started to really forgive my dad. I really started to dig deep down inside, and all those issues that was buried deep down, I started to heal from, and
Mm,
started to forgive him, forgive my mom. And because we grow up and we don't really know the true story because we're young,
right.
and we, you know, look at it as, hey, it's his fault, it's her fault. But until we find out later on in life, as we get older, the real story, we start to understand a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's crazy because I have an older daughter who's 11, and I've always said I never wanted to raise a split family, but here again, it happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a daughter who's 11, and I don't live with her. She lives in New York. And then I have a 2-year-old daughter with my wife now. And I've always said I never wanted that for my kids, but what I am doing is being the best father I can be, given
Mm-hmm.
the situation. And it's beauty in just trying to live your life, and I would say break those generational curses.
Oh yeah.
Um, that it doesn't pass to your kids. What we grew up with and what we probably went through, we don't want to pass on to them. So, you know, stopping they say, oh, it goes on in a family, stopping that saying it goes on in a family to say, hey, look, you know what, I'm going to try to create a different environment for my kids, an environment of wealth and family traditions that looks completely different from what I grew up in. And I think that's the best thing I can pass on to my kids, giving what we've got handed to us, you know, taking
Right.
what we handed and moving forward and doing the best we can with what we have.
I think that's true, and kudos to you, right? For me, I was married 7 years, 3 kids with my first, and we separated, and we have a blended family now, and it's challenging. Co-parenting is challenging, and definitely more power to you. It's not easy, and I can definitely relate. I have an 11-year-old myself. And so, being the best father, trying to have these open dialogue and conversations with our kids, being there for them. So, you're doing the right thing. Josh, I saw you nodding your head. What were you thinking?
No, I'm just kind of like what you guys are saying is just like really impactful. I would just yeah, I'm not sure what I would add. It's just no, it's just interesting hearing all your guys' stories and you know.
Yeah. And Nico, I'm celebrating 3 years in December, 3 years dry.
Wow.
And it's something that I think about all the time, just having a relationship with alcohol. And Joseph, you might relate, right? In the 80s in a Latino household, we're drinking on the weekends, we're sneaking a cerveza from the refrigerator and going to the corner with our friends and drinking, and so for anybody that's out there that's struggling with an addiction, you're not alone. And I just kind of put that up there because when we're talking about the power of forgiveness, as a man, it's really easy for us to do something, have that guilt and embarrassed feeling, and then just cocoon ourselves. We isolate ourselves. It's really easy just to kind of give up. And so, what I want to encourage those that do struggle, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and forgiveness doesn't mean excusing the harm that's done.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean making up with the person that's caused the harm. But forgiveness brings a kind of peace that allows you to focus on yourself, and it helps you go on in life. And so I just want, for those that are watching, I want to encourage you that if there is something that you need to forgive, work on that forgiveness. Break those generational curses, because we are the ones that are imprisoned by this. And so I thank you for that. So anchoring us, Nico, we're talking about the power of forgiveness, and you shared a lot tonight. And so, pushing the envelope a little bit further, when you think of the power of forgiveness, what comes to mind?
I would say the biggest thing for me is I don't want to have any unforgiveness in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the life I live. I have to live it in freedom, daily. I have to choose to live a life in freedom and a life that doesn't have all this weight on it, because as men, it's hard enough, to live this life as fathers, as husbands. It's hard enough to live this life. So just releasing any unforgiveness that I have in my heart daily. I mean, sometimes it's a daily thing we have to do. We have to choose daily to live a life of fullness and for me, a life of righteousness unto God. It and I know I'm going off topic a little bit, but the biggest thing I've learned in my recovery is I have to have a relationship with God, and that includes, me just living a life in right standing with God, and that's, for me, that's huge in my recovery and with forgiveness. So I mean, in the Bible, there's a lot about forgiveness. I mean, Jesus talks about it a lot. So that helps me.
Now, I have to ask, because something is asking me to ask this question, because I have a lot of conversation with young men and young individuals, I'll say, and God is not a popular conversation.
Yeah.
And they'll say, "Oh, the world, higher power," or they don't want to give God his respect. But then you come to find that a lot of those individuals may struggle with forgiveness because they don't know forgiveness, they don't know love. And so, Nico, from just kind of you understanding both sides, how can you explain it without going off topic? We're talking about forgiveness, but how can you inspire, connect, and educate someone to understand that it's okay for them to be a little, vulnerable, and it's okay for them to challenge the thought of their higher power and to fill in that gap with God to know what love and forgiveness actually looks like? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would say, for me, in my addiction, and I'm going back to my addiction because um, he was the only one that pulled me out. He showed me what forgiveness was, even though I couldn't love myself. So in my deepest, darkest moments of my life, I had no other place to look. I mean, at the time, I've lost my family, I've lost everything in my life, and he was the one that forgave me and revealed himself in a real way. Because obviously, if you don't know God and you're experiencing, especially the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they want to see something real. And sometimes, I mean, don't want to get off topic, but sometimes church may not be authentic. The most authentic thing nowadays. So they search into different um, religions and things. I would say that the true power of God is tangible, and if they get to experience that, they'll never want to be. They'll never want to do anything else. As far as they'll never want to experience with any other religion or any other higher power or whatever it may be. Um, when they experience the love of God, because I think personally, one encounter with God could change your life forever. I mean,
Mm.
that's what it did for me. And in the deepest part of my addiction, it changed my life forever. And it challenged me to be the best person I can be today.
Wow.
I mean, all around my life, with family, with finances, with ministry. I'm in ministry too. I'm a outreach pastor in my church, and that all happened through the deepest, darkest moment of my life, and building from that moment and not giving up and showing someone saying, "Hey, look, I mean, it goes on all across America today. Addiction. I mean,
Right.
painkillers, alcohol, whatever it may be. How can you build your life from there? Renewing your mind with the things that is going to actually help you be a productive member of society." And these are the things that I had to go through and the steps I had to take. I'm actually teaching a 12-step book through the Bible by Don Wilkerson, and then
Mm.
an AA meeting every Thursday night at my church. So
Cool.
I
That's awesome.
yeah, it's been great. We just started a few weeks ago. We got about 20 members showing up faithfully every week.
Mm.
And, it's an AA book, the 12 steps with the biblical scriptures to help them understand. Hey, look, this is AA. These are the 12 steps, and here's how the 12 steps and the scriptures can help you get free of alcohol.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But I mean, forgiveness is huge in just living a life of freedom. Um,
Again, not to go too much off topic, I won't excuse myself for this. It's not meant for always to kind of go left or right when we're talking and bringing faith into this conversation. But as men and here on the round table, we're being real and we're being vulnerable, and we're trying to condition and frame for our audience here on what forgiveness looks like. there's no cookie cutter here answer for forgiveness. It's really how someone perceives what forgiveness looks like, right? Sometimes people could say, I'll forgive, I won't forget. Sometimes people won't even ever forgive, right? They'll just kind of hold that grudge and resentment forever. And so for me, I think it's really important to help our viewers, men, young men, individuals of all ages, to kind of understand not to be too hard on themselves, that these generational curses are real. And I love that you put, Nico, talked about a clear consciousness. I think that for me, with my dad, forgiving my mom, issues that I have with other family members, issues with co-parenting, I have to practice forgiveness every single day. And there's power in that, because if I cast that second stone, I've already lost. If someone flips me the bird and I'm angry because I was driving and I flip them the bird right back, I give them two birds, I've lost, right? If someone calls me and they're irate and they're cursing me out, I can either say, hey, curse them out, or I could try to de-escalate the situation and disconnect the call or hang up right away, right? So again, the power of forgiveness, and I'm just trying to help others find and be the better version of themselves. And so I really appreciate that, Nico, for coming on and kind of just sharing that and sharing about your struggles with addiction and sharing about how you forgave your father and sharing about, as a parent with a blended home, how you forgive yourself, and you're being the best dad that you can be. And so, again, I challenge those that are watching. I told you in the beginning, this was a disruptive conversation, and it's definitely not easy as men to be vulnerable and talk about forgiveness. And so, for those that are watching, I want to challenge you. Think about this. Is there any family? Are there any friends? Is there anybody that you need to forgive? Or is there something that you've done to people that they need to forgive you for, and you're the one that's carrying the shit end of the stick? What are you going to do about this situation? So, guys, we're rounding third base on today's show. It's around that time where we go over final thoughts. Final thoughts is the segment where we would kind of give our viewers a rehash version of the power of forgiveness. And in speaker rotation, we'll continue with that. Josh, what are your final thoughts on today's show?
Yeah, I guess my just to summarize everything, it's like forgiveness is just kind of a holistic thing. You got to be able to forgive other people. You got to be able to forgive yourself internally, and it's just from not forgiving, you're just harboring anger and resentment, and that can just leak into all sorts of different aspects of your life. Things are just better when you learn to forgive, but you still don't forget in the sense that, you learn from the experience, you learn not to trust someone in a certain regard, but you still forgive. They're at a clean slate. Otherwise, you're not harboring the hatred and resentment. So I think that's the most important takeaway, just to let all that kind of stuff go, and life is just a lot better.
Yeah, they say forgiveness boosts our mental health, our mental well-being, and it reduces our anxiety and depression. So very powerful. Thank you. Joseph, final thoughts.
I want to piggyback off something you were just saying about letting uh, others problems that they have within themselves control you, right? There's
Mhm.
someone I love. One of my online mentors is Ed Milet, and something that he said recently was it really really hit me like a bag of bricks, especially here in New Jersey, right? You're gonna understand where I'm
Mm.
coming from. Where
Mhm.
you're at the red light, and before the light even turns, it's still in yellow, right? Between green and red, between red and green, and they're beeping the horn for you to start moving, right?
That's you become the worst
Yeah.
version of yourself.
If you're not from New Jersey or New York, you wouldn't understand the pain, right? But when those people start beeping their horn, and it's happened to me in the past, and you want to jump out the car, you want to yell at them, you want to throw things at them, right? But I'm kind of paraphrasing what Ed Milet said. I'm remixing it on my own. That's
Mhm.
literally like letting someone into your house and changing the thermostat of your house.
Mm.
You're allowing them to change It's like letting some guy you just met at a bar, and he said, "Let's go back to my house. We'll finish the game up over there, right?" And then he just starts going in your refrigerator and cooking a steak, eating your
Bro,
cereal,
what are you
eating the
doing?
last bit. What are you? You hit it right in the head. What are you doing? You can't let these other people control your temperature. You have to be
Mm.
the controller of your temperature, right? You like your house nice and cozy at a certain temperature, but you're letting these people turn the thermostat up to hot
Get me
to
hot.
make you feel uncomfortable and make you feel uncomfortable, right? So you can't let others control your temperature. Don't let those people adjust your thermostat where now you're going to overreact. And in New Jersey, from what I understand, it's a no bail state. Who wants to go through all that? Sometimes you just
Right.
can't help yourself. You give them that nasty look, and listen. I couldn't fight my way out of a paper bag, but I look super intimidating.
Oh, that was a good one. Don't let these people get you hot. I like that.
Don't let them get you hot or cold. You stay within your temperature.
That's awesome. That's a great final thought there. Nico, anchor us in. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's so funny because I live in Virginia and there's no urgency down here whatsoever.
Oh yeah.
I am from New York, but down here there's absolutely none. I don't want to get into it, but
Well, they got an open carry and they'll shoot you if you
yeah,
look at them wrong. No,
yeah. I actually open carry down here. I don't carry it too much anymore, but that's one of the things that I was looking forward to: a pickup truck and a gun. You know. But I would say, my final thoughts are, if you live your life in full forgiveness, I mean, you can literally conquer the world. There's nothing you're gonna hold on to. There's no one that's gonna stop you because you're living your life, and and people admire that. People admire that. You're gonna attract the people in your life, and you want to, the people you hang around with. That's who you get. That's who you're gonna be like. They would say, show me your friends, and I'll show you your future.
Mm.
You live your life in
Absolutely.
forgiveness. You live your life in with a good circle, and just with good morals and things like that. I think you're gonna be very successful in life. People are gonna want to be around you. Hey, that guy's a great guy. He's got a great attitude about him. There's just something about that guy. And that's the guy I want to be like, I don't want to, like I said, carry anything from the old generation into this generation. I want to change it forever. And that it's a daily decision. I would say it's a daily decision.
It is the power of forgiveness. We're not robots, folks, and we have to practice this every single day. And so we always like to finish our shows with a quote, and this is by Lewis B. Smedes. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. So go in grace, go in peace. This is Anthony Rosa, Mr. Remedy. You're watching another show on the Roundtable Remedies. Thank you all for watching. Speakers, hang out in the after room glow. Talk to you guys soon. Peace out.
Thank you guys for the invite.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.